Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Jim. We are live on all channels. I think Jim's getting the Insta and
TikTok's up on Instagram.
Welcome
to TikTok and Instagram viewers. We're live. Richard,
I will say though, if people want to be quite interactive with us, we shared the spreadsheets and things last week. If you do want to be interactive and actually see that, probably the best place is our YouTube channel to follow, and the whole playlist for the Wealth Creation Show, and obviously our mini-series of the Diary of a Property Investors on there to follow. Anyway, so just to pick up for last week, Jim, we were still concentrating quite a lot on the business venture that you had with obviously a estate agency, and the repercussions of that, obviously, because you entered that without maybe your risk analysis and complete planning and thinking time and entered that. So you were dealing with that, and we took a wee bit of time. We stopped to obviously look at your purchases as you were still purchasing as an investor in your own right. You have obviously purchased quite a lot of flats and properties and things in that time, so we stopped to have a wee chat about them. But we're still obviously at that stage where you are dealing with the responsibilities of the business and things, and all your financial and legal responsibilities at this stage as well, and how that was having an effect on you in a professional capacity and obviously your personal capacity as well, and all about how obviously you accumulated wealth, but then you've also at this point where you're starting to lose quite a lot of it. And that's kind of where we left off last week. So picking up today. I'll let you lead off for where you want to pick up from today.
Jeez, I'm trying to think where we left off the last time. I mean,
I know. I was thinking about it.
And I'm quickly when did I buy what and when? Because we were going to talk about the back-to-back stuff, and I'm just looking.
Yeah, well, that's the last thing I've got is back-to-back. We spoke about back-to-back, and you can't do back-to-back now, but at the time that was something you've done a lot of while building your portfolio at a certain time, and it was instrumental in obviously building your portfolio. So let's talk about back-to-back.
I kind of do back-to-back. It does work to a certain degree, but you've got to have a bit of money behind you in order to do that. But let's you've recapped where we were. You know, Duddingston Drive was probably the last place I bought in Kirkcaldy. And that was in 2007. I'm looking at my spreadsheet, so I'm looking at me because I'm looking at my spreadsheet. I've got spreadsheets and notes and everywhere because I'm trying to collate where I was with this, and I'm trying to remember the 5th of December. I reckon 5th of December, as far as I'm concerned, because that's when I'm born. Anyway, so we're 2007 is Duddingston, and then I tell you what, I stopped for a couple of years. I stopped actually buying, but why did I stop? I hear you ask.
Yeah, I was just going to say, why did you stop, Jim?
Good question. Why did I stop? I stopped because I took my eye off the ball. Now, this is the shiny penny I talk about, and I used to get this lesson taught to me by my mentors about the shiny penny, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Or they used to talk about a chair in front of you. And what used to happen in this example that they used to talk about, they were walking along in a straight line. So they were actually showing me, they were walking along, there's where I'm right now, there's where my goal is I want to go. So they used to walk along in a straight line. And then all of a sudden, this chair would be in the road. And it's like, okay. And then they would stop and look at the chair and admire the chair and talk about the chair. And I thought, okay, where are we going with this? Let's get to the point here. And I got frustrated about it, and they said, no, this is a nice chair, and it's a good chair, it's a shiny chair, you can sit on this chair, and this was the shiny penny story. This is the fact that, you know, I know it now as you're walking along the road and all of a sudden you just see this wee shiny penny on the ground, and you know where you're going, but all of a sudden you start to focus on the shiny penny, and you go down to pick the shiny penny up, and then you start looking at the shiny penny and go, yeah, okay. But remember, it's actually distracting you from where you're meant to be going. And this is the biggest challenge for me, shiny penny. Remember, I'm distracted already because I've taken on something that, in hindsight, I probably should never have taken on. In hindsight. However, we are where we are, and that decision at that time was, it probably still is the right decision now, because I wouldn't be where I am, and it would be frightening. This is another lesson I learned. I'll come back to the shiny penny in a minute. I'll go round this. It's the thing that I don't understand the most, and most people hear me out on this, but it's a classic example about when somebody goes on and says, "If there's anything, was there anything that you ever regret doing in your life, and would you change it?" I immediately pop into my head and go, "Okay, if you've got kids, the answer to that should be no."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it was before your kids, because the answer to that should be no. Because in my timeline, in my world, it's the butterfly effect thing.
Yeah.
It's the decision that you probably wouldn't have made then, that you made to have your children, maybe means that your children would no longer exist. And that's how I look at things. See how I look at this bigger vision, this peripheral.
Yeah.
I look at the bigger picture rather than actually looking at the isolated case saying, "Oh, I'd love to get rid of that out of my life." And it's like, no. Everything that's happened to me, whether it's been a failure or whether it's been a success or whether it's been just nothing and wasted my time, has brought me to this point in time.
I would 100% agree with you on that. I do think that, and
has to be celebrated.
Yeah, I do think that whether it's a mistake at the time or whether you think it's a bad decision, if where you are right now is a good place and you're happy, and like you say, if you've got children and things, then everything that you've done leading up to that has got you to that point.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't change anything, and I've got the same kind of mindset on that, definitely.
And that's when you go back to the shiny penny. So we go back to the shiny penny story. You're standing there, and it stops you forgetting where you are. So what happened was, Century 21 became a shiny penny. And unfortunately, it was a shiny penny I locked myself into for the next 5 or 6 years by contracts, by leases, by agreements, by cars that I committed to.
Financial obligations.
Yeah, but all in my name. So I had to ride this out and make the best of the situation I was in there now. Now, bear in mind, I'm still not earning any money from this business at all, and it's cost me money every single time to run it. And at this point, it's probably at the point, I think, where now my business partner has now left, because they really had no commitments and they were a man of straw. So therefore, them walking away meant that they wouldn't pursue them for anything, really. But me walking away, I've still got a fair considerable amount of wealth there. And the very fact that the moral obligation for me is like, if I pin my colours to the mast, this is just how I think. I don't know if anybody else thinks like this. But if I say, yes, I'm going to do something, I am going to do something. It's like, I do not say, yes, I'm going to do it, and then say, oh, I've been thinking about it, I'm not going to do it now. It's like, no, I am doing it, even though it ends up worse for me in a certain situation, because I pinned my colours to the mast.
Yeah.
And if nothing else changed in that scenario, I'm the one that's reneging on the contract. Therefore, I'm the one that's basically, as far as I'm concerned, is immoral. It's like morality and your word is your bond. For some people, just don't count for anything. They just think it's okay to say, yes, I'll do it. I had it recently with someone. They said, oh, if you do this, if you do that, if you do this and that, and I'll do this for definite. And I went, okay, I will make sure you're first in line. I will make sure you get this. I'll make sure you will get this place, this property. And then I teed it all up for them, and then they came back to me and says, oh, actually, somebody's maybe selling one in the corner, and I'm probably going to go for that one now. Sorry? I've just got this all sorted out, and I've lined this all up for you, and you've just basically reneged on that for no reason at all. So it's kind of difficult, but then it also learns a lesson that, you can't put your own beliefs on someone else, because that's just not how the world works. That'd be nice.
I think it's a big life lesson when you suddenly realise that everyone's maybe not got the same outlook or the same morals or the same, do you know what I mean, take on things as you do, and you expect at some point in life you do expect everybody else to be the same, and that's not the case. I definitely think that was the issue behind it. You do actually think, and it's the same for everybody out there, and you have to understand this. Tony Robbins talks about this all the time. Your belief systems are what you put on someone else. You actually attract another person that has the same sort of beliefs and core values as you.
But you don't realize that's happening, and that's why you have a tribe mentality. There's other things in other situations, though, where I spoke to Ian about this morning, how certain property trainers actually attract vulnerable people who don't really have a pot to piss in, for want of a better phrase, and they make them believe that they could become a millionaire. And it's like with nothing, with absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be amazed at the people that come to me and say, I need your advice on how to do something. I'm like, have you got any equity? Have you got any standing in the community? Have you got any friends? And the answer to every single one of these is no. And I'm thinking, you're never going to be a millionaire then. You've got no chance, because it's you, it's the problem. It's no one else.
Yeah.
I had it recently. Well, there's you as the problem, no one else. I had it recently where, a couple of people decided to go with another agent. And I'm like, what did I do wrong here? Because clearly I know I exceed and excel way above everybody else. I'm not even on the same pitch as everybody else. They're not on the same pitch as me when it comes to selling property and negotiating property and getting the best price. So what is it I've done wrong and I've failed to communicate to them? And I realised what it was. I hadn't demonstrated it clearly. I just took it for granted.
That they would know, yeah.
Yeah, this comes back, and this is a wee life lesson as well. This comes back to the athlete that trains every single time. So I took a break during the November period. And in December a wee bit as well. I took another week off in Spain as well. But I was working, but I wasn't going out constantly to pitch to people to get their business. I went off the boil because of that. And I've now realised that's what's happened. I went off the boil. I stopped doing certain things that I would typically do in my pitch every single time. And lo and behold, the last two people that I went to see went with someone else. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense at all. And that's what it was. I'd failed to communicate certain parts of that in the conversation. I failed to pick up on it as well. But that's training and developing every single day and doing it day in, day out in order to be the best at it. Why do you think golfers train every day? Why do you think the athletes, the swimmers train every day? Every single day they do something to further their career or what they're wanting to do in terms of winning an Olympic gold or Olympic medal. And they train every single day for that reason. It's a discipline. So why should I not do it? And why should everyone else not need to do that either? You'd be amazed at the amount of people out there that think they don't need to do that. It'll just happen. If I manifest it. No, it's not going to happen like that for you. If I think about it a lot, if I put charts on my wall and all the rest of it, it's like, it's going to happen. It's going to come to me. No, it doesn't happen.
You need to make it happen.
Unless you make it happen. You have to take action and do something about it. That's what the point is.
Yeah.
Somebody says what we're talking about, wealth creation. We're talking about my property journey as well, actually, how I lost my first million after I gained my first million. So we're talking about that, and we're talking about property investment back to back. We're learning life lessons in between as well, just to play the catch-up game for that person. And anybody else who's actually watching. So that was a lesson in itself, at the fact that I was left holding the baby with no income at all. But I managed to survive on my property income because I had money coming in still. So thank God I built my property business, my property empire at that time, because I had that income coming in, and that's what we survived on. Otherwise, I would not be in this position today. I would have probably had to just fold and call it a day. And God forbid, I might be working for someone else.
Yeah.
Hi, I tell you what though, I'm not gonna decry that. Having a job you love is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I loved being in industry. I loved being a financial controller in manufacturing because it just floated my boat about processes and systems and understanding how things were made and how they're manufactured. There's nothing more exciting than being in a manufacturing business. And I would go back to that in a heartbeat if I chose to. However, there's a bigger picture I've got to achieve now. And that can't be part of it anymore. But I tell you what, it was great. It was fantastic. And it was a real worthwhile job, actually manufacturing and producing something. I mean, we used to manufacture at Phyllis Russell. We used to manufacture all the cards in Trivial Pursuit. We used to manufacture that. we used to manufacture the cigarettes, the packets for John Player Specials. So we used to manufacture the board for that as well. We used to manufacture the cover of Yellow Pages. The cover, not the pages, but the cover.
Yeah.
So the board that actually went into that used to be Tillis Russell who did all that. You know, all these different things he used to manufacture, and I loved that about it. That's why I loved doing the manufacturing. And then Macintosh was all the school refits. So we did all the schools in Scotland, more or less. You see furniture in that school. That was the company that I helped run at the time. It manufactured all these carcasses and worktops and everything for these schools and fitted them. That was Macintosh. Now, for me, that's something to be proud of because it's something you've actually helped achieve. Whereas, yeah, opening a door for each other and service-based industry, yeah, it's great. But where do you add the value? That's what it comes down to. That's what wealth creation is all about. Where do you add value? Where do you fit in? Or are you just opening a door for someone and putting your hand out and expect to be paid?
Yeah.
That's, you know, why would you not want to do that in the best way possible? That's maybe just my mindset.
No, I could understand that, yeah.
So if you want to be the best, if you want to do something, then make sure you be the best at it. Be the best at it, work towards being the best at it, and drive that through every single day. That's what will rise you to meteoric success in everything that you're doing. Not just what you're doing in there, but everything outside of that, because you don't really differentiate your work from your home life. I'm amazed at people that say that. Well, they're probably broke at a different level, and they're probably not got any money. They're probably up to date in their up to their eyeballs in debt, because they say, "Oh, I've got, no. When I go away from my work, that's it. I switch off." And I'm like, "Well, I can't imagine you'll be that successful in terms of the 1% group in Britain, the top earners. I can't imagine that if you're going to be like that." And anybody that goes on Instagram or whatever it was and LinkedIn and says, no, I switch off and I don't do, it's like rubbish. You're not telling me you don't switch off, because I tell you what, in order to be the best at what you are, you have to be on it all the time.
You have to do that, yeah.
It has to be part of you. It has to be part of your core. And what I mean by part of your core, and the classic example is, I used to say to everybody, if I was a stick of rock, okay, and you sliced me in two, and you read that in between, it would say fiveproperties.co.uk in it. If I could get 5 properties jammies and pants and trousers and outfits, I would wear them every single day. Why do you think I run about in a branded car? It's not to show me off. It's just like, I'm proud of what I do. I love what I do. But I love property investing as well, because it helps other people and it develops wealth so I can help other people.
Yeah.
You saw it yesterday. I put a post on and said, I'm climbing up Tootball.
Yeah.
And Tootball is, I need a charity to do it for, because I kind of thought I may as well just do it for a charity when I'm doing it. Some funds for someone. But at the same time, I mentioned about the fact that if you miss out in the first round, don't worry, because we're looking to give away £35,000 this year to charities and causes in Fife anyway. So just tag yourself in there and mention it. Now, where do you think that 35,000 comes from? It's what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we're doing every single day. It's what our business, that comes from there. So the people that use us, that we make money from, we actually give
feeding back into the community. Yeah.
I give most of that back of what I earn into the community for that reason. It's not a tax dodge. It's nothing like that at all. Because I can hear the cynics out there going, it's a tax dodge. He's up to something. He must be, all these different things. It's not. It's the very fact that there's only so much that you can make. And the rest is just for show. I'm not a show person.
No, and I think, as you've demonstrated and discussed before, Jim, obviously, you're Fifer through and through, and quite proud of that. And your local community within, like, obviously Levenmouth and surrounding areas, is what you want to give back to, and make sure that it's perspiring throughout the coming years, and obviously, especially times like now, where things are difficult.
If everybody really, truly understood and got into my head and understood what I said, every single person would be using us to sell their house in Fife. They would never use anyone else again. And that would be a great situation. because imagine what we can do for other organisations and charities.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know other businesses that actually do that. There is other few and far between, but I don't know very many estate agents, if any, actually do that, because they don't have that mindset. They don't think about that. Anyway, let's go back and talk about this.
Yeah, well, you had said obviously you took your eye off the ball in terms of your own portfolio and buying and things, but leading up to that, you obviously and after that kind of blip, you were doing back to back, and you were. I think if you want to just kind of explain back to back, Jim, just for people who aren't too sure, because like you say, you can kind of do it now, but it's not like it used to be.
So back to back was a real easy thing to do on the day. Back to back was you bought it, you then sold it to your partner on the same day. They got the mortgage on the property. So I bought it for 60,000. It was really worth 90,000. I sold it to my wife for 90,000. She got the mortgage of 90 grand. We have no money in the deal.
Yeah,
that's how it works. That can be still done to a degree today, but the banks insist that you've got to wait 6 months to do that. And you've maybe got to demonstrate at some point in time you've added value to it. Now, they were okay in the beginning with back to back because, it wasn't really a serious ramification of the credit crunch. So they were fine with that. And then the thumb screws got tightened up by the regulatory body and the financial services regulatory, or whatever it's called now in this country. And they said, no, you can't do that anymore because that is leaving yourself open to potential negative equity exposure. So this is where, I think 2014, where it got phased out for that very reason, because the stress testing came into place. And I'm sure that came in at the same time. Therefore, back-to-back was you were no longer able to do it. But when I did back-to-back, it was like, my God, I do remember a few of them, and I'm looking at some of them here. Subsequently, I mean, we were locking in at least 17. You were buying possibly, one of them here. I bought a 2-bedroom. Incidentally, you live in it now.
What's that? My place? Yeah.
Yeah. I actually bought that for 60. I bought it for 63. But I did a back-to-back to 80 on the same day, and the mortgage was obviously a percentage of that. So basically, I really had no money in that deal. So I was able to do that, but I took initially £40,000, and I just did it back-to-back and fed it all the way through and made it work. Remind me about the Inland Revenue and what wait a minute, they popped up and says, what are you doing? It's like you're making gains and no paying tax. However, that was one of the ones I did. And then I did another couple as well. Another one in Buckhaven. I did a back-to-back. Incidentally, the one in Buckhaven was a repossession. Now, I bought that in Buckhaven in what is the Bird Scheme in August 2009.
Yeah.
Now, this is another thing that you have to be prepared to do. And this is a wee lesson I learned. I would never have got that property for that knockdown price. This was a 3-bedroom. And it had a bedroom which wasn't approved for upstairs to be a bedroom and an ensuite bathroom.
Yeah.
But the person had put some makeshift stairway up into it and actually did this. Now they got the house repossessed, and it was through another organisation, so I was able to then go for it. I saw it come on. I immediately jumped in there. Now it was on the Friday I jumped in when I saw it come on. And I was due to go to Pitlochry with the kids that afternoon for the weekend. Now, most people would actually just wait till the Monday and come back on the Monday. I'm no most people. I was there straight away, made the appointment. When can you meet me? Da-da-da. I took the camping gear and the kids with me to the viewing before I went to Pitlochry. Did the viewing, agreed the price, job done. Got it before everyone else. Now, most people would wait till Monday, and that's where you leave the door open for someone else over a weekend.
You either lost it or had to.
Yeah, the deal was done definitely. So what I did with that one is I actually bought it for 75, did a back-to-back. Well, actually, no, I didn't. Yeah, I did, and I didn't. Bought it for 75, managed to get the mortgage at 80 at the time, or something like that. And then what I did was I also did a further advance on it later on. So I actually got a bit more out of it for a further advance, and therefore I had no money in it at all. That was another one. But I spent maybe £5,000 making that compliant for that upstairs room.
Mm-hmm.
And that added about £15,000 on it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because that's at a good price point now, and you've made quite a lot of good cash flow from that over the years.
But we've got it on we've had it permanently rented since then,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been rented for a real good amount all the time. So think about all that from 2009 to now. I mean, even £500. So £500, £6,000 a year and rent. £6,000 times 10 years, there's 60 grand. On the block for 75.
Yeah.
Now, people out there could immediately jump in and go, but you've got your mortgage to pay, you've got everything else like that. Aye, but I wouldn't have had it in the first place anyway. So it's better to actually have the additional costs than not have it at all. What's the phrase? 30% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah.
Plus the fact I owned the asset. And the deficit destruction of mortgages means the mortgage was extremely low in comparison to what it is in the value today. Therefore, there's a huge amount of value locked into there by me making sure that the top was compliant and it was all passed through building control and building warrants and done properly.
Yeah.
That was market did that as well for me at the time. So that's what it is. I tell you what, though, I heard an interesting statement the other day, and it said there's two parts to success here. One's having it, and one's actually surviving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. It's amazing how many people get so successful.
It ends up being their demise.
Well, look what happened. The Midas touch.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got the Midas touch. I could do anything. And like, oh, well, bring yourself back down to earth. You've not got the Midas touch. You've now found that out. But unfortunately, you're locked into all these leases and agreements and cars and all that finance. So you've got to grind it out now. That's what you got for sticking your neck out and saying you got the Midas touch.
And like you say, Jim, you obviously at the time had your property investment portfolio, which is just kind of side hustle. Obviously, if you didn't have that, that would have been your demise because you entered into that without.
Richard, I would hate to think where I would be if it wasn't for the property and the additional income that I did on the side. Remember, that started off as a side hustle.
Yeah.
See how that can build up over the years. Now that started off that was mid 1990s. So now we're on 2009. We've hit the credit crunch. We are literally over 10 years in.
Mm-hmm.
10 years in, I've developed something. It saved my skin, basically, financial skin, and kept me on track. But I tell you what, mentally, it was a big toll. You know, we're still comprehending the fact that I'm still building this. I'm locked in these deals. You think of the mind space you are when you're in this, because you're locked in these deals. You can't get out, and it's becoming more and more apparent. And there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and you're on a hamster wheel for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's
what happens to you, and then everything narrows in, and that's where depression starts to set in. That's where you start. And I don't mean, oh, I just feel depressed. I mean chronic. I mean like clinical depression. I mean like it's hardwired into you now because you've basically burnt the candle at both ends and in the middle, and there's no candle left to burn.
Yeah.
So this is what happens over time, and then what happens is most people then go to you use the drink to try and control it by saying, "Oh, I feel really happy because I feel free in my mind." It's like, and then the next day it's like, boom.
Back to high.
Boom, back to reality, plus the fact that what drink does to you, it brings you right down to the bottom, and worse. So you could easily see how the dark spaces start to appear, and the dark thinking starts to appear as well. And you're constantly on a hamster wheel. But it's amazing at that time. Remember when I'm in that mindset, I'm still doing this. Now, the reason I did that, the back-to-back, was I attended a weekend seminar with a couple of guys who first started out. And most people actually know them now. It's actually Rob Moore.
All right, yeah.
Aye, and he's sidekick. So I know he does a lot as well. They're both
his sidekick.
But when Rob started out, he didn't have a clue what he was doing. But I tell you what, I was probably more informed than he was in the room, and I think he was quite intimidated in the fact that I knew more about buy-to-let, the buy-to-let business than he did. But I tell you what, he got a couple of guys up there who actually were a bit of duck and divers, and they knew what they were doing. And that's how I learned back to back. That's how I learned that strategy from that person. So that one weekend, which cost me 800 quid, by the way, remember, invest in yourselves, but invest with the right people. Cost me £800 to invest in it that weekend, has made me an absolute fortune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've still got these 6 properties today that I bought for £40,000 in total. That's all it cost.
Yeah.
Think about all the rent I've earned over the last 10 years, because I've had them since 2009 now, and all the price that's gone up since that time as well. All for £800 that I learned from someone. Some of these things I actually learned just going to a free workshop and actually hearing somebody say that out and then just walking away and then just not doing anything else with them. But that wasn't with them. That was just other people I've learned. So the one thing I didn't do is I just didn't stop. I got distracted in that couple of years. And then I started to refocus again in 2009 and thought, I need to get moving with this because there's opportunities appearing. I couldn't do anything with our repossessions that we were bringing through because you know how to do that. There's conflict of interest. But I was able to do it with other repossessions that came on the market elsewhere and do it like that. So that was definitely one I picked up.
That's a good. It's a good example of. Do you know, Jim? You say obviously invest in yourself and go to training and training courses and things with the right people, obviously. But I think a lot of people go to these and they come out thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this," and try and overdo it. And what you taught me is, even if you take maybe 2, possibly 3 things, or even if it is just the one thing from that and incorporate it into what you do. Yeah. And if it works, then it's worth your time. It was worth the cost of whatever the course was. Absolutely. If you could implement that to your advantage, yeah.
I've always said, and it's a one thing everybody laughs about me. It's like I would go to the opening of it, an envelope, if it furthered my cause.
Yeah,
genuinely, just to learn that one big thing from someone, just one thing, it would change a wee bit of my direction. It's like having the, you know, the typical when you used to light the paper with your magnifying glass in the sun. It's like that's what it was. I just wasn't in line with the sun yet. And then what happens is when I started to move the magnifying glass, which was get further training, further information, further advice on where we are right now, then I started to move it, the sun shone and it lit the paper and I was on fire again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. There was another book I read actually, which was Andy Shaw, Money for Nothing and Property for Free.
Yeah. And
that went on the back of that as well and actually reinforced what I was doing was the right way forward in order to build it again. So I bought these 6 properties at that time. One of the other lessons I learned was, and this was, I was in the estate at that time with Century 21. I was still running that. But one of the things I did learn was how, for want of a better word, how rubbish other estates are at negotiating. It's like, it was comical sometimes. Because I remember going out to Queen Margaret Drive in Glenrothes. Okay, Now I inquired about this property online on this estate agent's website, and it was on at £100,000. And I inquired about a 4-bedroom mid-terraced. Okay, 100 grand it was on it at that time.
That's quite a lot for them.
And I inquired with them because I thought, okay, I'll look at this and see if I can add value because it was 4-bedroom. 4-bedroom's good return. Yeah. So I inquired with them. And immediately when I inquired, they announced that the seller's in a distressed position. They've committed to a new build. And this property sale's fallen through and it's come back on the market. She needs it sold desperately. And I'm like, oh my God, this is her agent. It's volunteering all this information to me. And I've never even asked that. I just phoned to inquire about the 100,000 level. And now they're telling me to take any offer possible. So what did I do? Even better, they sent me around to do the viewing with the seller.
After telling you the situation.
And I tell you, here's the lesson I learned when I was on that course. Here's another lesson I learned. And what it was walk in the door, shake their hand, introduce yourself, let them spill their guts, and then say, what's your mortgage right now? And she said 75,000, and I said, "If I clear your mortgage, have we got a deal?" She went, "Absolutely."
And that's how you do it, yeah.
You're having a laugh. That's what I learned on that course.
Yeah.
if I clear your mortgage, we've got a deal. And I was gobsmacked. 25 grand off just like that. All because the estate agent told me, and then all because the next one was the seller told me when I walked in the door as well, the position they were in. I desperately need rid of it. I've committed to a new build. I have to buy it. I don't know what to do. And then I just says, well, what's your mortgage? 75 grand. If I clear that, we've got a deal. Absolutely. Job done. That's another lesson. And this still happens today, believe it or not. There's times I've honestly, and I've been buying actively, you know that, where I've done this strategy right now in the last year or two, and the same thing's happened. And I am appalled at the other estate agents how they're letting this happen. They have no idea what's happening. I got a 1-bedroom in Cooper, and literally it was on 80,000. No, it was on at £60,000 for a 1-bedroom in Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, do you think you'll accept 45,000? And it was on with the agent, and the person came direct to a property sourcer, and they had them down to 50. And I says, well, just offer her 45,000. And she went, I'm not taking that. I'll take 45,500. Okay, you've got a deal. And I'm like, you're joking. And they had to go back to their estate agent saying, I've sold it when you couldn't sell it, and I've sold it for 45 grand, and you've got on at 60. Even as the stage, and I'd be going, do you not think we should really put it down to 55 and see how we get on? Because it's another 10 grand, and I might get it shifted for that figure. It would drop by 5. No, they just tucked up the embarrassment and took the fee. You see how, as an estate agent, I know what goes on with every other estate agent. Yeah. That's why a lot of them don't like me. Because I call them out for who they are, Richard. They're charlatans.
People like, they don't like being held to task and showed up for what really is going on.
I've got no qualms about what I love what I do, and I love getting the result. Yeah. It's a sport for me. I love getting the best possible result, even more for a seller, even for a buyer as well, and getting a win-win deal for them. But I'm not in a stage where you just phone me up and say, what will I do? Will I just offer that? And okay, and I'll just take it to them. And it's like, you may as well just go and do it yourself. Yeah. It's like, there's no point in that. If all your agent is doing is just taking the message and passing it on to you and letting you decide, without actually doing any, upsell and pushing the price up and manipulation.
Negotiation on your behalf.
I mean, to be honest, it's a bit of manipulation as well, because we're clever. We know the psyche of people and how that works. But I don't think I would take a bet that no one else actually knows that, because they don't continually improve and continue to develop their knowledge and their wealth and their experience. They don't develop that at all. They just like, we're selling the house and put it on the internet, hope for the best, and if we get an offer, great stuff, and that's it.
You just see what comes.
Yeah. That's kind of where they are. But you see that, because then as soon as we do something that's successful, they copy it. That's obvious. And that's always been since the beginning. They've always copied. Yeah. The biggest flattery possible is probably when people copy you. You can't be upset. You know you're doing something right. But that's what I'd learned. That's what see all these examples like before about, I'll get you 40,000 for your 1-bedroom flat, and it's like, well, why are you phoning them up with an offer at 36,000 then? Yeah. And that was another one. So you see how I'm beginning to build a profile of how estate agents deal with people as a seller and also as a buyer. Mm-hmm. And then thinking, God, I could blow them out of the water easily. Hence the reason why I say everybody should just sell us. No, everybody's going to, because you're just not. I would desperately say a lot of people they just can't afford us, if that makes sense. But they can't afford not to use us, because they don't realise the thousands they're losing at the end result. But that's entirely up to them how they think.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing as well. And I try to explain that to people that maybe are on the other side of the fence. It's the end result. It's the end result.
That's funny. I got it for 75. I got it remortgaged actually at 85 back to back. So I got a good deal out of it, and hence the reason why I got 40 grand locked in terms of that. And then it came to the other ones as well. I got a 2-bedroom flat in Methil. That was on that was valued at 57. I got it for 15 grand less. Yeah. And then did the same back to back, and had another one Glen Office, 3-bedroom end terraced, That was valued at 80. I got it for 19,000 less. Now, these are genuine offers.
Yeah.
That I'm putting to people, and they're saying, yeah, it's great exit strategy for me. I wasn't going around saying to people, you know, oh, I can only offer you this, I can only offer you that. That's what they wanted, and that's what they
I was
wanted.
just going to say, do you think people were accepting such lower offers because maybe the situation, obviously, like on the back of the credit crunch and all the rest of it, do you think that had an impact on that, or do you think it was just
no, just their personal circumstances? I mean, a couple of them. I mean, your property, you know, that was somebody their house sale fell through. It was at that price anyway. And I said, well, if I give you that price, will you just still want to go ahead? Because it makes sense for me. I never ever see every time I see a property's coming on, I never ever took advantage of that. I actually just left it. I thought, well, good, that's a good property. And then I would just sit and wait to see if anybody else would pick it up. And most of them actually got picked up by someone else, but there was one or two, maybe, you know, they fell through because the other person couldn't afford it. And then I would just step in and say, look, you know, I'll buy it at that price if you want. I'm okay with that price because my numbers work. So I made it to happen for a lot of people. This was another one. Another one. It was 80, and I got it for 90, 19 off in Glenrothes. So I bought it for 61, and I got it remortgaged at 80. Therefore, all money back out, no money down deal. Still got that one today, and the next one as well. You know, 3-bedroom lower flat in Methil. Got for 65, and that was a classic of the 65. You know, like fell through. I picked it up and says, "I'll pay you 65 for it." Then I'm fine with that. Lo and behold, I did some background work in that with other comparable that I'd recently sold once it was about to settle, and I was able to get a valuation from a surveyor at the 75,000 and made the back-to-back perfect. So that's it. The difficulty of that is then what happened was, is that the sixth one? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. That was a few more. That was a few more. Yeah, I started actively buying since then. And then also in 2010, I bought another one. Yeah, actually, I got another one and I did the same strat. I almost did it quite a few times. It was still in existence. I never just did it 6 times. I did it a few more times. Another one I got Kenaway, 2-bedroom house. You know that one. We've still got it today.
Yeah.
I got that for 60, 50, 53.
That's good.
Mortgaged it up at 70. Got it for 53.
Yeah. And we've only just recently, I think, done the refurb on that. We've done it all. For when you bought it, would have been
well, to think about it, that was 2010. We've only recently done a refurb. Therefore, I was basically getting that for free, and then I was making money on it for the last 10 years. And then it's only now I've actually put in for the refurb and done the kitchen, bathroom, and all the decoration and carpet and everything.
Oh, but 2020, 2021. So yeah, you got like 10 years.
Yeah, so it shows you. Well, think about 10 years at £500. So £500, 6,000, 60 grand. I got more income. I got more rent out of that than I actually paid for it.
Yeah.
Good deal, eh?
Yep.
Did come back to haunt me in some sort of way, because in 2016, Inland Revenue sent me a letter and said, you've sold a lot of houses in 2010 and we've not got any capital gains tax for that. And I'm like, no. And then I looked at it and I thought, oh, no, that was the back-to-back stuff. So I had to actually educate them and send them a spreadsheet to the HMRC and tell them how it was done. And they went, husband and wife transaction, can't do anything about that. Husband and wife transaction, Inland Revenue can't do anything about that at all because it's love, favour and affection. That's the rules under the legislation. Yep, love, favour and affection. You can gift stuff to your spouse. You can pass stuff, transfer stuff back and forth between spouse. It is a great advantage being married.
And that's still the case. I mean, there's no change in that.
Trust me. If you're and I'm a right charmer, especially with Valentine's Day coming up soon. If you've listened to my original story about why Elaine and I got married, as I ran home from college one day and realised that we were losing out on £500 a year tax allowance because we weren't married. So I thought, we better get married, and within 2 weeks we were married on the 29th of March, just before the end of the tax year. Ye old charmer. It's like we lived together for 5 years before then, but I realised when I did accountancy that, oh my God, we're losing 500 quid a year. We've lost 2.5 grand that we could have got free, tax free. And all because we weren't married. And we had always thought, it's just a bit of paper. And literally, because we always felt, we've always been like that with each other. But logically, why would you know then? If you're getting all these tax advantages. So it's a huge tax advantage actually to be married, especially if you're investing in that scenario. So to put a clinical face on it, by the way, I know people are like, oh, that's no right and all the rest of it. It's like, that's your beliefs. I've always learned by the lesson, there's your version of events, there's my version of events, and then there's the truth. Remember that. That's a really important lesson I learned recently on a podcast, actually, Diary of a CEO. The one I'm listening to now for Diary of a CEO is Steve Peters, the Chimp Paradox.
Yeah,
that's a brilliant one where he talks about that. He talks about people's beliefs and why they do what they do, and he says, the trauma and how he gets people over trauma, and how he gets them to learn to live with it. Like, for example, he talked about this morning. He says, I could never change anybody. I could never change anybody's opinion about losing a child. He says and he says he's honest with them. He says it's the worst. It is the worst thing that'll probably ever happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. It won't go away in time. It'll be with you for the rest of your life. What we have to do is develop coping mechanisms to manage the grief that you'll have for the rest of your life. And you will, because I've known a few people that have gone through this, and it never goes. It never really. They just learn to cope with it and live with it.
Yeah, which is a really difficult thing, but again, it's about
the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
I've heard people say it. It's like I've been at funerals where they've lost their son, and the father would turn around and say, it's probably one of the worst things you would ever want for anybody.
Yeah.
You never want to happen to anybody because to have your own children go before you is just like you couldn't even comprehend that.
I was just going to say it's incomprehensible, really.
That's how some people, I could see how some people can never ever get over that, and they're in complete trauma for the rest of their life. But do you see how you can learn from these lessons that other people have that you don't need to go through, but you can actually learn about that and how that affects other people, and how you could have empathy for someone else, not sympathy because you're not going through it, but how you could be empathetic towards someone else's challenge that they're going through and the needs that they need, and understanding more than anything by learning from something that's happened to someone else without needing to have it happen to yourself. That's a powerful message for anybody who understands how that is. That's a real good lesson. So that's where we were. And then, oh God, the worst thing happened ever. Let's not dwell on it too much. Let's get on and say this. So I'm sitting one morning outside this old terrace and leaving, and the houses are now getting built across the road. That I sold the land off.
The plot, yeah.
To my friend, one of my best friends. I didn't realise what was going on. I knew he was in a difficult place, a dark space. And then his son comes over to me, and I rolled in the window, and he says, "He's dead." Sorry? What do you mean? Who's dead? He's dead. Killed himself. You're joking. And I didn't think I could ever comprehend that.
Yeah.
And when I look back, I thought, was there anything I could have done about that? Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but it haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
And the fact that he just one day, and Christ Almighty, to be in that mindset and to do that, and it's like people say it's the coward's way out, but they don't understand where you are with that.
Yeah.
And it's the very fact that he actually went on his knees and tied a noose on the door handle and just leant forward. Never even jumped, just leant forward on the door.
So, yeah, and to be fair, in that kind of situation, if he wanted to stop, he could have. Do you know what I mean? Like you're saying, it's not, but obviously didn't.
I've been there, Richard. I've been there. He always talked about it. He always looked at his friends in his photograph, and he says, "Look, these two have hung themselves as well." I'm the only one left. And I'm like, I didn't realise that there was something going on. I just thought he was talking about the bazaar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, that was it. One day he was here, the next day he wasn't. And then that's when I saw the trauma that cascaded later on from that. And what happened to his family and his children and how it affected them.
Yeah.
Then I guess, stopped me doing it.
Because you've seen what happens, the aftermath of what that causes to the people that you leave behind.
I came dangerously close to it. Mm-hmm. You don't understand how dangerously close it was. There was one point I was really envious of what he had done, because he managed to get out of it. He managed to get off that wheel. He managed to get out of that. The pain went away. So you can imagine, you'd probably never be able to imagine the pain it goes on in somebody inside. It feels like that at that point in time. Yeah. It just wants it to go away at any cost. But the only thing it kept me going was the thinking about the ramifications of how, see, even in that point, everybody says it's selfish, and it's not. It's actually, you still think about the other people it'll affect. And that's how I completely get and understand people in that situation now, because of what I've gone through myself. Now, this was later on, and we might talk about that journey later on in some sort of shape or form.
Yeah.
But for now, we're only talking about this point in time. But I knew this is the dark space that I was in as well. But I didn't know at that time I was ever going to get to that point where I would actually really, it's a real viable option to do this. Yeah.
But it's strange to think, and it's probably, I mean, not for you, because obviously you look back, but from my perspective, it's strange to think that you could actually be in such a place to actually go to that extent, but people do. Do you know what it's like?
And
it happens.
There's a link in here actually to the Samaritans, if anybody's wanting to speak to them or anything like that. If anybody's feeling like that as well, and there's a free phone number as well in there. For me, I know it was a product of the working back to back all the time, constantly over the last, I don't know, probably since I was 20 up to that point. So 20, you're talking about 18, 20 years. You're talking about 20, 25 years of that constantly all the time.
Continuous.
It's going to catch up in you at some point in time. And then getting to the point where you've actually boxed yourself into a corner where you've no light at the end of the tunnel. Now you can see. Now you can see when you've got no light at the end of the tunnel, there is effectively only one way out. For people in that situation, it's I could see why that could be. What I would say to everybody out there though is, tomorrow is another day, and I know it's cliche and all the rest of it, but you won't, because I'm not that person now. And God, could you imagine what would have happened if I'd done that?
Yeah. I think the important thing is to get yourself in a position where you realise you need to speak to somebody in order to help you out of that mindset.
You can only help yourself. And it really is about actually just opening up and talking to somebody at least. And if they don't give you, if some people are anybody out there that think they could resolve the situation, they can't. You need to go to proper counselling. You need to speak to the right people. You need to actually have the right person on your side. Now, I'll be honest, the social services system now is diabolical. The one thing they don't have is labour. And I mean by that is the manpower or the woman power to have the proper psychologists at hand. By the time you actually see someone, it's 6 months down the line, and it's too late by then. Yeah. If you were going to do something, you do something. I mean, I've known friends, kids that have actually gone and done it. And it's like, oh my God, to have that and to have to, that's unbearable.
Yeah,
that's even worse that you'd have to live with. It would be truly difficult to do that, to even go on, to be able to go on. I can't imagine what that would be like for someone. It'd probably be 10 times more than what I was going through.
I know people that have been through that situation, and you do notice that they lose a wee bit of their self. That I don't think they ever really get back.
Well, that's your children, isn't it? It's like, you've had them. It's like that's so for me. With all these life lessons and everything I've learned and what's happened and my best friend doing that, it kind of puts a different perspective in your life. It kind of puts a more focus on, when is enough enough?
Yeah.
And will it ever be enough? And I think you have to come to the conclusion that there is only so much money you can make and the rest is just for show. And is the show really worth it?
So do you think that
you get to my age, it's like, nah, it's not really.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so do you think that brought you to a stage of kind of like maybe reevaluation of where you currently were in terms of...
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but you've got to remember, I'm a machine. It keeps going all the time. You have a lack of control as well for doing that all your life and trying to stop and do something else completely different is just as difficult in your head, because it's this you've got to master. Everything else will work. It's this you've got to master.
Yeah.
And understand that and understand coping mechanism in terms of what you need to do. I think that's the most important thing you've got to understand out of this. And then the pile on as well was, we're probably going to finish the show at this episode for the How I Lost My First Million.
Yeah.
But the next steps out of that was I decided to leave Century 21 because my franchises were up. I let it run for another year because I didn't know how to get out of it, because everything was linked into it. So everything was linked into it. Like my career was linked into it. My, all my website were aligned. I had no idea how to build a website. I had no idea who to use. I had no money to do these things. That's the difficulty. So it was almost like, I tell you what it was like at the end of it, when it was getting towards the end. I felt like I was in an abusive relationship where the other party, who was the master franchisor, was continually taking money off me and expecting me just to keep funding them, and them actually not giving me any support or help at all, and I was just left to my own devices. And literally all I've got is a brand, or a brand that I've built. Not a brand that anybody knew, but a brand that I've built, and a website that I could have got for anybody. And we just came to the conclusion that, or I came to the conclusion that I need to get out of this. So then I started to ask questions from other people and ask, who could do this and how could they do it, and just fumble about and see if I could find someone that could actually build a website, someone that could actually maybe do some branding. K2 Marketing was brilliant.
Started your planning.
Yeah, Sean. Now, I should have done that ages ago when I knew my 5 years was up, but unfortunately, I'd left it.
Yeah.
And then because I was out of contract, then they decided to say, I tell you what, because you're out of contract now and you're not signing a new contract, we'll screw you for even more money now. What do you mean? It's like, Christ almighty, I've given you so much. I've given you about 200,000 or 300,000 in money over the years that I've been with you, and you're still trying to wring more out of me, basically.
Yeah.
So I thought, enough's enough. I need to get out and all the rest of it. And then when I started to rebrand, when I started to do everything for myself, and we got started for the first time, we started to take this stuff on. I gave my notice. My period was out, and then all of a sudden on my doorstep on the Christmas Eve, an interdict. You know what an interdict is? You have to cease trading right now as your current brand because it infringes our brand, Century 21. That's what they did, an interdict.
Yeah, I remember.
And you know what I did to that? Go and fuck yourself. Because I had now become a man of the world, and I now began to realise this is how the system works now. And I now began to realise over the years, the experience that I had, it's like commercial reality. You're not going to stop me because the company isn't in my name anymore. It's in my wife's name. Mm-hmm. She owns 5 properties, not me. So your interdict is against me trading as Century 21 or trading as a new estate agent, but it's not against my wife, who I am now an employee of. Yeah. And that's how I got around it. But I still had to take it to court. They still had to take me. They took me to court. They hanged it against me. I won my court case clearly. I wasn't infringing anything they did. And I spent £15,000 or £20,000 winning that court case. And even though I won, I only got £5,000 back. That's a really good system, isn't it?
Yeah.
You could win your court case and you get 5,000 in damages back from the other party. That's shocking. Absolutely shocking. And you know, that's how the system works, unfortunately. So there was another setback, another £20,000 I had to spend. So see how the tribunal, then there's something else, then there's something else. So just when you think you're getting your head above the water, somebody pushes your head back down.
Yeah.
That's the resilience you have to have, I think, in running a business. You have to realise that this happens to everyone. I remember Lionel telling me about it. Lionel had Thermal Transfer. So Thermal Transfer was a company in Fife. And he had Thermal Transfer, and he was now the managing director when he employed me as the financial director at Alba Diagnostics. I remember Lionel telling me the day that he was on his bed screaming and crying like a child, genuinely, because he thought there was no end in sight for Thermal Transfer. It was all going pear-shaped, and it was about to collapse and go into administration. 5 years later, he sold it for $6 million. there's a case in point, eh?
Yeah.
It's like, and that's the sort of thing, the lessons and the people I've spoken to over the years that I've learned the lessons from, and the fact that it just tells me there's always a brighter tomorrow. Tomorrow will be another day. Tomorrow's another day. It's a classic example about what Adam Sandler, Robert De Niro, Matthew McConaughey, they all sit around the table, and you'll probably see it on TikTok, and they come up with the phrase that this too shall pass.
Yeah.
In other words, what's happening today will be completely irrelevant in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
You'll not even remember it. It'll not even be part of your psyche. And then when I go back to talk about it now, about what happened before, it's just like, it just happened. It's one of these things. I am
But
where
at the time, it was a lot more.
Oh God!
Obviously, because it's at the forefront, it's a lot more relevant. But you need to kind of put yourself in the mindset that, well, like you say, further down the line, it's not going to be as prominent and as important.
But at the time, Richard, it was the end of my life.
Yeah.
I just wanted to leave. I just had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. So when you think about where that was to where I am now, I think, God, it's like, so for that should give most people, or nearly everybody, hope that, you know, tomorrow will be a brighter day every single time.
Yeah.
It literally won't be like that at all, what you think it's going to be like the now. And I think that's the lessons I've learned out of the journey I took and the end of Fife Properties. No,
Century 21 and the start of Fife Properties, yeah.
The end of Century 21 and the start of Fife Properties and where we started to begin.
Yeah.
And after that, it was just almost like a meteoric rise. Yeah. Because I then started to do the things I needed to do to build it to where I was. But that's another story. We'll maybe talk about that another day. I don't think there's anything else I need to talk about. You know, I bought another couple of properties on the way. Surprise, surprise. I bought my leaving office. That's when I got Fife Properties. That was in 2011. So that's when we changed over. And then I bought another couple of properties, which were actual. They were fall throughs. They were fall throughs. It happened. You know, it just I picked them up, but I should have actively. I know in hindsight, I should have actively still kept investing. But again, we're having Fife Properties. It's taking your eye off the ball again. But I don't regret that. That's never a regret. And where I am now, I don't really regret the journey I've taken, because what I've learned so far has helped so many people. I mean, there's been people in my situation before it have private messaged me after other things I've done previously on Sunday slot shows and talked about it and said that's exactly who I am as well. I've subsequently sent them a fantastic book. It helped me understand me, and it's turned them around.
Yeah.
In terms of the way they are. So if I hadn't have gone through that, these people might not have been here today. So you think about the effect of what you're doing has on everyone else. And that's why the most important film and I resonate with is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for George Bailey, if it wasn't for Jim Parker, how many people wouldn't be a lot better off as a result?
Yeah, and I think that just it's all kind of rounds back to giving back, and that's what your whole business set up and your own premise on things is to give back to people and give back to community and help people in their journey as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's take a few questions. Because we're
I'll just quickly zip through TikTok and see if there's anything that's relevant for anybody. See that hi, yep, told them what we're talking about. Somebody's just going to talk about wristwatches. I'm looking to buy one. Well, that's a Garmin Foreman 120. That's for a triathlete. That's for a triathlete.
Must have been good capital depreciation on it as well, mate. Was it worth it now? Absolutely worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would never be where I was if it wasn't for that and the journey I've taken. Couldn't buy in garage in London for 65 grand. You probably maybe get a shared toilet, pal. You can buy a semi-detached house in Northern Ireland for 65,000. Yet Northern Ireland had its heyday. The market dropped like a stone. I only know that because one of my production managers was moved over there when we took over our sister company, Seago Advanced Ceramics, and he had to pay a fortune for his property at the time. And then it dropped like a stone. And he's now back in Glenorchy again, Pat Kelly. So Pat, if you're watching, or if anybody knows him, fantastic guy. Everybody will know Pat Kelly's a great guy. And that's it. Thanks very much for everybody. And that's the end of our episode for the How I Lost My First Million.
Yeah, I think that was quite a good roundup, Jim. Right up to obviously the beginning of you obviously 5 properties and the end of obviously that journey.
What we're going to talk about next week. It's like we'll have to think of something now.
Yeah. Right. Well, okay. Well, if everyone joins us next Monday, 12:30, we will continue that journey. Jim, you could think about some points to pick up on.
Listen, there's loads of stuff to talk about. Wealth creation is an ever-evolving thing. So we will be back next week to talk about something which will develop wealth more. If you've got any suggestions about what you'd like us to talk about in terms of wealth creation or any ideas, I mean, inflation's a classic. I'm going to talk about inflation tomorrow, but I'm just going to talk about it in general and how it is the most destructive thing to our economy right now and why we need to tackle it. So I will talk about it in a wee 5-minute podcast tomorrow about how inflation needs to be kept under control.
Good. Right. Okay, Jim, that's great. Thanks. And thanks to everybody who watched and any questions that come through there. That was great. And we'll be back next Monday, 12:30.